The Watershed Association in Hays County gave a tough update today, revealing Jacob's Well remains closed as the spring experiences zero flow.
One of our area's most popular swimming holes is at zero flow, and officials say this is only the 6th time this has happened at Jacob's Well.
An underwater drone recently entered Jacob's Well, a deep and dangerous cave in Texas, and captured something horrifying. The shocking discovery has left everyone stunned and raised new fears about what lies beneath. As the drone ventured deeper, the images it recorded were unlike anything seen before, sending shockwaves across the world. Could this frightening find change what we thought we knew about Jacob's Well? We will uncover the terrifying truth hidden in the depths of this strange cave that will change what we know about the universe. The deadly depths beneath Jacob's Well. Jacob's Well in Wimberley, Texas isn't just a pretty spot to swim. It's breathtaking, but also risky. The deep water paths and thick, sticky mud at the bottom have ended up being the last stop for at least 12 divers. Even though it's attractive to those who love a good thrill, these sad losses add a gloomy note to its beauty. But what the underwater drone uncovered deep within those dangerous waters could be even more terrifying than the tragedies themselves. Stay with us as we reveal the chilling discovery next. This place isn't just an impressive natural formation. It's alive with many creatures: quails, roadrunners, turkeys, water snakes, sunfish, Guadalupe bass, crayfish, and blind salamanders all call it home. It holds the title for the longest cave in Hays County and is the runner-up for the longest underwater cave in Texas. It's fed by the Trinity Aquifer, a massive underground water system that collects water from the rain and surface streams passing through limestone, creating underground caves and channels. The well has been a notable spot since the times when Native Americans roamed the area. The earliest records of Jacob's Well come from the 1800s, penned by Jacob de Cordova, who was a real estate guy. He was blown away by how clear the water was. You could see tiny details way down below. Some folks think he talked up the well to get people interested in moving to the area, helping him sell more land. The name Jacob's Well might have been inspired by an old biblical story about a well Jacob made that kept giving water. At first, the spring here was so powerful it shot water up high, making it tough for anyone wanting to explore it. But over the years, the water's force has dialed back, which makes it a bit safer for those daring to check out its hidden depths. Now the place is a favorite for visitors who enjoy the crisp, clear water, with some brave souls leaping from the cliffs into the narrow entrance of the well. The real adventurers go further, diving down into the network of underwater caves. Only divers who are really skilled, well-trained, and have the right licenses try to tackle this challenging area, which could take them around 5 hours to navigate through tight spaces. The sad stories of Kent Mopin and Mark Brashear, 2 divers who died exploring the cave, remind us of the dangers lurking within Jacob's Well. They dive deep into the cave system, driven by their love for new discoveries, not realizing the deadly turn their adventure would take. At the well's mouth, a 25-foot drop leads to what looks like the bottom, but it's deceiving. It's visible from the surface. For many years, countless divers have reached this point, enjoying the view of the sky mirrored on the water's surface, maybe even picking up a fossil or two before the strong push from the aquifer sends them shooting back up. The initial dive might be safer now, but going deeper still needs a lot of expertise and caution, proving the well's ongoing challenge and its appeal for those looking to delve into the remarkable features of this natural wonder. When you start your dive at Jacob's Well, you begin by descending slowly through foggy waters, gradually losing sight of the daylight above. As you go deeper, the surroundings become murky, covered in silt where visibility is nearly zero. Down at a gravelly flat area, a narrow path beckons divers to push down to a depth of 55 feet. Turning on a light here reveals an otherworldly, fascinating scene. Divers often feel like they're floating, weightless, in a dense fluid, much like the floating pearl you might see in a commercial. Although the well is only about 20 feet wide, it's a maze of dead ends and walls marked with odd scratches and deep crevices where large catfish dominate their cold, indifferent kingdom. The entrance gives off a soft glow like moonlight shimmering through the water. A tight chute pulls you deeper to 75 feet where the space narrows enough just to squeeze through. This section is home to crayfish and the odd eel, which later travel to the Sargasso Sea to spawn. The tight passageways challenge divers, testing their skills to maneuver with their tanks through to a tall, narrow chamber topped with an air pocket. This chamber serves as a gateway to further exploration, highlighting the challenge it poses. Even though they knew the risks, 2 young divers were eager to explore, not knowing what was waiting for them. The tragic dive of Mopin and Brashear. Kent Mopin and Mark Brashear, two young explorers drawn to the depths of Jacob's Well, were no strangers to diving. At 21, Mopin was not just an experienced diver, but also an assistant instructor working part-time at a dive shop in Pasadena. His fascination with the well's depths and eagerness to explore beyond the known zones were strong. Even knowing that 4 divers had tragically lost their lives in this very spot didn't deter his determination. Accompanied by 20-year-old Mark Brashear, a fellow diving enthusiast and college student, Mopin traveled from Pasadena with a group and camped near the well, close to a dwindling resort just a few miles from the town. The appeal of the unknown depths was too tempting, and on the night of September 9th, just past midnight, they took the plunge into the well. They tackled a dangerous part of the cave known as the Final Squeeze, which had previously claimed lives. Without additional lighting or safety ropes, they pressed on. To navigate a particularly tight spot, Mopin detached his tank and pulled it along, with Brashear following his lead. Left behind, their buddy Joe Moy tried to signal them by banging on his tank as his oxygen ran low, but it was too late. When Moy emerged, the once clear water was now murky and disturbed, a clear sign that Mopin and Brashear had stirred up the sediment below, signaling a tragic turn of events. This heart-wrenching story highlights the inherent dangers of Jacob's Well, yet it continues to draw the brave and curious, all eager to discover the profound and captivating depths of this stunning natural feature. Battaglia tried really hard to help out the divers over in Wimberley, but things were getting pretty tough, and they realized they needed more hands on deck. That's when 3 more folks from the Hays County rescue crew joined in. By the time they all got to Jacob's Well, it was already night. This place, Jacob's Well, is notoriously tricky and has seen its fair share of trouble before. The previous team had been looking through the water ever since the incident happened, but they just couldn't spot the young divers. Exhaustion was setting in, and they were really struggling to piece together what might have happened to their buddies. Jacob's Well is known for being a tough spot for diving, but it's only one of many such dangerous places that have some chilling stories tied to them. Diver Coos had a rough go of it. He spent an hour and a half inside this underwater cave and actually saw where the bodies were, buried under some gravel, but despite his best efforts, he just couldn't pull them out. Dibble, peering into the well, could only see pitch black and thought it best to wait till daylight when they could see better and hopefully retrieve the bodies. He sent everyone home, thinking they'd have better luck in the morning. Sadly, those bodies stayed hidden down there for 10 years, until a different team of divers finally found one during a lucky break when the water flow changed. Initially, Dibble had sent down 2 divers to take a look and hoped they'd find the bodies easily, but it wasn't to be. The path was nearly blocked off by gravel. When they surfaced, they were pretty shaken up about the unstable gravel and the risky conditions of the cave floor. Dibble went back to San Marcos to put together a bigger team and bring more equipment, planning to give it another shot at the crack of dawn. Come morning, 2 divers went back into the well, trying to move the gravel aside with small tools to clear a path, but this just made things trickier. After some mixed messages about whether it was safe to keep going, Dibble and a game warden named Calvin Turner decided to dive in themselves. They dropped extra air tanks at different depths and kept to a safety line as they went deeper, double-checking the upper parts of the cave to make sure no remains had been overlooked. As the search continued, one rescuer's fight to escape the deadly caves became a battle for his life. Dibble's near-death struggle in the well. They got to the section where the last divers were seen, but it was still blocked. Dibble checked his air, realizing he was running low on time at that depth. He tried to get through the narrow, gravel-filled passage with his safety line and flashlight, but then gravel hit his mask. Suddenly, a slide of gravel trapped him right at the entrance. The water got murky and he was stuck in the dark, his arms pinned, unable to signal to Turner for help. Panic set in as his air supply dwindled fast. Thinking he was about to die, Dibble decided to end things quietly. He removed his breathing apparatus, trying to drown quietly by swallowing water, trying his hardest not to breathe it in to keep the panic at bay. But then his will to survive kicked in. He fought through and somehow managed to free himself. Blurry-eyed, he saw Turner offering him the mouthpiece of a spare air tank. He took a deep breath, which unfortunately made him gulp air into his stomach. As they started going up, the decrease in pressure caused the trapped air inside Dibble to expand painfully, forcing them to ascend quickly to dodge decompression sickness. This quick rise caused intense pain as the expanding gases wreaked havoc. Once he hit the surface, he looked puffed up, and soon after he threw up the mouthpiece, shouting from the pain. He was in agony for 12 hours before he started to feel a bit of relief. His symptoms were similar to what you'd see with an embolism, where air gets trapped in your lungs, usually something you'd handle in a special chamber. They rushed him to Brooke Army Medical Center, but the treatment there only helped a little bit. Later, a doctor took some x-rays of Dibble and found a tear in his stomach lining. He was diagnosed with peritonitis, which is like having 5 appendices burst at once. It was serious, and he needed surgery right away. They had to cut through his swollen belly, which felt like cutting into a basketball. While Dibble was on the mend, the effort to pull the bodies from Jacob's Well kept going. Don Broad, a 46-year-old expert diver from Austin, came into the picture. Broad was a straight shooter with strong convictions and a long history with the well. As a kid, he'd cobbled together his own diving gear to explore a local canal. By high school, he was totally hooked on Jacob's Well, diving there often, and even finding old things like a water wagon and horseshoes. Broad wasn't a fan of missions involving body recovery, and he disliked divers who bragged about such tasks because of his past bad experiences. But they needed his know-how. He dived into the well and found 2 divers who had died back in 1965, their equipment and logbooks chillingly preserved near the end of the passage, their flashlights still glowing after all those years. He also came across other divers' remains, which was a pretty haunting experience. After getting out of the hospital, Dibble faced an $8,000 bill and had no insurance to cover it. But he wasn't alone. His diving pals stepped up, putting together fundraisers and even planning an underwater film festival to help with his bills. Once he got the okay to dive after Christmas, Dibble's first job was to make Jacob's Well a bit safer. He and his team lugged 80-pound bags of cement down into the cave to build a concrete barrier complete with metal rods, blocking off the most dangerous passageway while letting water keep flowing. Despite all their hard work, some thrill seekers still didn't take the risks seriously. Dibble later found that someone had yanked off the grate he'd put over the cave entrance, leaving a cheeky note behind. This was just one of many instances where folks just didn't respect the dangers at Jacob's Well, a place that had seen its share of tragedies, claiming the lives of skilled divers like Kent Mopin and Mark Brashear. Even after the past tragedies, thrill seekers still dive into Jacob's Well, but many are not ready for how dangerous it can be. How Jacob's Well keeps testing divers. Jacob's Well is infamous for its narrow, tricky passageways. An article by Louis Bond pointed out just how difficult and misleading it can be to navigate this underwater maze. Even with a sturdy grate locking up the entrance, the well continued to draw daring adventurers. In 2015, a young diver named Diego Adam nearly had a deadly mishap during a free dive when he lost a flipper deep down at 100 feet. Thankfully, his sharp diving skills and level-headedness allowed him to surface just in the nick of time, escaping a potentially fatal situation. The happenings at Jacob's Well bring attention to how risky cave diving can be. It's a spot that really shows why you need the right training, good safety measures, and a big respect for the power of nature. Even though folks like Dibble work hard to keep it safe, loads of people still flock there, eager for the thrill of discovery. This tells us just how much humans crave adventure and the thrill of checking out places not many have seen. But it also makes it super clear that being careful, getting ready properly, and respecting nature's wild side are super important. Jacob's Well might be a known danger spot, but it's just one of the many dive spots across the globe that draw brave divers. Jacob's Well in Texas is known for its intricate network of underwater caves, and sadly, it's a place where many divers have lost their lives. It stands as a stark example of the world's many hazardous diving spots. Each of these locations offers unique experiences but comes with big risks. Take, for example, the Eagle's Nest sinkhole in Florida. It's often called the Mount Everest of diving because it's incredibly dangerous. This dive goes down more than 300 feet and has lots of narrow passageways and cramped spaces that even the best divers find challenging. The murky water in there makes it super easy to lose your way. The dangers of Eagle's Nest were highlighted not too long ago when 55-year-old Charles Odom lost his life there. He and 3 buddies went diving. One of them stayed back because of gear problems. Odom and the others went down into an area known as the Ballroom. Just about 100 feet down, Odom stopped responding. His friends managed to bring him up to the surface, but sadly he was already gone and couldn't be revived. Since the early 80s, at least 10 divers have met their end at this site, leading to occasional shutdowns for safety reviews. Then there's the Temple of Doom in Tulum, Mexico. It's a stunningly beautiful cenote, which is a kind of natural pit, but it's also packed with dangers. The clear water pulls divers in, but the vast maze of underwater caves is very risky. It's all too easy for divers to get lost or stuck in there. Despite these risks, the Temple of Doom keeps pulling in divers from all over the world. The local tour guides are pretty laid back about safety, even though the entrance to the cave system is marked with a skull and crossbones. It's a perfect example of how people are drawn to the beauty of nature, even when it's mixed with real danger. The Shaft Sinkhole in Mount Gambier, Australia, is another place that's not for the faint-hearted. It was discovered way back in 1938 after a farmer's horse accidentally found it. Since then, divers have been keen to explore what lies beneath. To get to the main underwater chamber, divers have to squeeze through a tight spot. The main area, called the shaft, leads to 2 big tunnels and includes a 118-meter deep pile of rocks underwater. The dangers of this place became really clear in 1973 when only 4 out of 8 divers who went into the shaft came back. Later, they found the bodies of siblings Stephen and Christine Millett, Gordon G. Roberts, and John H. Bockerman. One of the survivors, Glenn Millett, couldn't find his siblings in time. Before this sad event, around 8,000 dives had been done here. It seems the accident happened when the divers left the clear main chamber and went into a tunnel, kicking up silt and losing sight of each other. The Shaft Sinkhole remains a sought-after dive spot for those looking to tackle its unique and risky underwater landscape. Could the horrifying discovery in Jacob's Well be just a natural phenomenon, or is there something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Could it be connected to other strange events in the area? Tell us what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.